What's up, class, and welcome back to another lesson in the No Mod Shop class here on the Skooled Zone. As is often the case, today's video is actually a follow-up video to my video on getting rich through Fallout 4 manufacturing. So, if you haven't seen that video yet, pause this and watch that first so this video will make sense. Links in the description below and the iCard above. So people seem to really love that video, and it's gone semi-viral with over 225,000 views so far and counting. That is awesome. I really appreciate all the support and friendly comments on that, guys. However, a few of the most common questions in the comments were the following. Number 1, can the lunchboxes be opened with grenades? Number 2, can this loot box factory be fully automated? And number 3, is there a way to have them infinitely cycle through so it's a better moneymaker than water farming, say? And the answer to all 3 of those questions is yes. I really appreciate the inspiration to do that, guys. Now, too many people to shout out in the comments, but a well-deserved sequel just for you. And let me show you what I built here. Alright, let's see if it's pretty tall. So let me see if I can give you a better perspective. Oh, by the way, this is my temporary pet iBot here. Decided to name him Eddie, as a little tribute to Fallout New Vegas. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is give you guys a tour, and then we'll give it a complete run-through so you can see the incredible wizardry at work here, all right? It's almost as cool as my Wi-Fi glitch video, which you guys should definitely check out if you haven't seen it yet, because I incorporated that into this build. He keeps nudging me around like a pet dog or something. Okay, so let's take a quick look. Actually, you know what? Let's just fire off a clear weather shell to make it all nice and sunny. Okay, so before I turn it on, let me show you what I did, all right? So the first thing I did was start off building this glass silo here, okay? So I just started off building it on the ground, and as I moved up, I started deleting the pieces under it and then added this angled frame here so that we could have a switch door that would roll up and drop all the lunchboxes into this hopper. I think this was pretty much the only wide rolling door and ended up being a little too wide, so I just added some spike poles here to give it some illusionary support there. The regular smaller power doors weren't big enough and the stuff would get clogged, Unfortunately, with the vanilla and DC assets, there's not a horizontal type powered door. I think there is in the mods. I think I've seen something like that, like a chute. But, since I don't use mods on the channel, this was the best we could do. But I think it's going to work here. Now, this area over here was all from my previous video on manufacturing, where we originally built the clear weather shells. And then I changed this out in that last video to build the lunch boxes. So if you want to know how to do all that, I already covered that. Just check out that previous video. All I did here was just add some chutes to elevate the lunch boxes all the way up to get dropped into this glass silo here, okay? And then I added some stairs so that we could add grenades to this pitching machine here, all right? Which is also on a switch down there. And it is going to drop a grenade automatically into that chute, and I'll show you what happens, all right? It's pretty cool. This whole place looks really nice at night as well, so we'll take a look at it at night. Okay, so these are my 2 switches. This one's going to activate the grenade, and this one's going to turn on part 1 of the assembly system, which includes opening that door, opening the hopper, running this conveyor belt into this thing right here, which is called a sorter, okay? Now, the way sorters work, I didn't cover this in my intro to manufacturing build because it was a slightly more complicated item. But what you can do, all right, Eddie, don't get in my way, bud. Okay, so what you can do is you can add 1 or more items to the inventory of this sorter, and then anything that matches that inventory as it comes down the belt will get sorted this direction. Okay, anything that's not included in that inventory will get sorted this direction. All right, and then we just have it hook around here to the loot storage. Okay, and then what it's going to do here is also end up in a conveyor storage, but it's also attached to another vacuum hopper, which is then going to pull the lunch boxes out, up this conveyor belt lifts, across the way, and all the way back up to the top again which is then going to drop them from that top conveyor belt back down into the silo to start the process all over again. Because once they go through conveyor storage or any of these conveyor belt lifts, they get repaired. All right, and here is the switch to start that process up again, okay? So I turn that switch off over there when I'm ready to do cycle number 2, and then start this process up again, okay? And then just to give it some illusionary supports there and to make it look all decorated, added this Lootbox factory sign, which is just that gas sign with a painting reversed and pillar glitched into place. Okay, then I just pillar glitched this whole thing in here using the stairs rug technique from my junk fence video. Okay, so all those independent lessons will all be down in the description below. So let's get started here. Okay, so in my secret steamer trunk right here, I've got 1,350 steel. So if my calculations are right, that's going to make about 450 lunch boxes, okay? Which should be enough to test all of the cool junk items that we can get out of this, okay? So what I'm going to do is just start this process so we can watch a few of them drop into place, and then I'll cut to probably an hour later when they've filled this whole bottom half of the glass silo, okay? So let's get started. Oh man, I'm gonna have to put you in the corner, Eddie. Yep, that's right, Eddie. Steel is coming out of there, and it is gonna get dropped onto that conveyor belt right there. You can kind of barely see it's coming out there. It's gonna go into this presser, get turned into lunch boxes, and then ride all the way up and down into there. Okay, so let's see it do a couple of them. And then I'll fast forward ahead. And when I cut back in, we'll take a look at it at night so you can see how nice this little setup looks at night. Okay, so we have the first of our lunch boxes fallen into place there. Now this process does take a while, so you've got a couple of choices here. You can, if you've got the room, you can set up multiple builders all programmed to build the vault-tec lunch boxes, and then have them all funnel into that conveyor lift, okay? The other thing you can do is just go on about your business in the settlement, build some more things around, and you know what? I haven't tested out whether if we fast travel away, whether it builds on its own. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick while I have you guys here. As you can see, we've got about 6 of them so far, okay? So let's see what happens. I'm pretty sure it's gonna stop the process, but you know, might as well just see what happens. Okay, so let's head down to Diamond City real quick.
Yeah, it's true. I got shot in the ass last year. Long story.
Got shot in the ass?
You shot me in the ass! Okay, wait.
Well, I ain't got time for your long story. I gotta head back and see if my little factory is still working on its own. Okay, let's see what it's done here. So it looks like it stopped. Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't build while you're away. So what I'm gonna do now is just cut ahead, and I'll be back in just a second for you guys when it's all filled up, all right? Okay, guys, just thought I'd check in with you here. Also kind of show you what this looks like at sunset, because that's when I think looks the coolest. Lootbox factory, yes indeed. All right, so here's where we're at. All the steel has been emptied from the steamer trunk. So now it's just kind of being hoarded in that builder there, which is cranking out lunch boxes as fast as it can. And it's still dropping them into this glass bin here, as you just saw. It's filling up nicely here. I'm not gonna lie, this part of the process does take a while. In fact, it's taken so long that I'm gonna actually have to finish this video tomorrow, which for you is just gonna be in 2 seconds. But for me, it means an extra day before this video can come out because I'm gonna be late to work otherwise. When I actually tested this for myself, I only did it with about 150 lunch boxes, not 450. So It's taking a little longer, but I thought it'd be kind of cool to have them all pile up so you can see how the whole process works. But yeah, you don't have to get so fancy when you want to build this yourself. I made it look like this for a couple of reasons. One, because I just wanted to decorate it a little bit. You know, if I was going to keep this as a permanent set piece for this settlement, I probably would decorate it even more. I might keep it though. It looks kind of cool. We'll see. I mean, I can always switch that builder out for other things and it'll just drop into there and then through there. So it has multifaceted purposes. Oh, and then the other reason I built it like this was because of the way that my Abernathy farm setup is here. You can't pillar glitch things through this wood. So I could have lowered this thing down a whole lot more if I had started out on a flat, brand new settlement service, you know, something like Starlight Drive-In or whatever. But anyway, so in 2 shakes, I'll be back. For me, it'll be the next day, but we'll get this thing filled up, at least this whole bottom portion here, you know, and then we'll test out the conveyor process and I'll show you how that works. Okay, be back in a second. Okay guys, I am back. It's the next day for me, but the production process has finished and we have a pile of lunch boxes in this glass silo. It's a pretty big pile. It doesn't look that big, but it is 450 lunch boxes. So we're gonna go ahead and run our experiment here. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and turn this off. We don't need this on anymore. And this switch is gonna light the grenade, all right? So I have a pulse grenade in that pitching machine there. So what it's going to do is it's going to fire it, hit the wall, and then drop down just in time for it to explode in the area and hopefully open almost all the lunch boxes. You know, there may be a few stragglers left, but we'll cycle those through. So let's check it out. Okay, so that was pretty sweet. So that glass container is going to contain about 99% of the lunch boxes. So there is going to be just a few of these things that get blasted out of the glass, but it does a surprisingly good job of keeping them contained as well as all the loot in there. It would have been more impressive, obviously, to use a nuke grenade, but then the splash radiation damage all around this area would have given us some radiation. Also, you know, just in case you have settlers walking by and all that stuff, the pulse grenade does a really good job, actually, and it's one of the grenades I use the least because they're only really effective on robots, and my guns are just as good as on robots. So if you have some pulse grenades lying around, those are probably the best to use for this process. So let's go ahead and start this little conveyor process and see what's going on. All right, as you can see, all the lunch boxes are piling in there. Now, as it's running this through here, there we go. I was like, where are they? Okay. So first it's gonna pile all the lunch boxes through here and they're going to get sorted into this conveyor storage, okay? And then anything that's not a lunchbox is going to end up running along this conveyor storage bin. Now, about this, okay, I really thought when I built this that the gravity would cause the lunchboxes to slide down into that hopper. As it turns out, it's not perfect. All right, and I did go back and try my best to add some of those rollers to the bottom of this glass silo. Unfortunately, for the life of me, I could not get them pillar glitched in there. I didn't want to just have rollers and not the glass bottom because then all the stuff would have slipped through the cracks and fallen onto the ground. I did try to pillar glitch some of the angled conveyor belts as well, and those conveyor pieces just have really solid collision boxes. They are just not very collision friendly when it comes to using the pillar glitch. So I have an idea of what we can do instead, but let's go ahead and let these run for a second so you can see what's going on here. I love that. I love the way that worked out there. I also covered up a tiny bit of the top of that sign with some track lights, which is what's lighting up this side with all the signs. So, okay, looks like it finished for the moment, so we're going to turn that off. Now, you can throw another grenade. That's so cool. You can throw another grenade down there, and I might actually just go ahead and do that since we have a bunch left. But I'll show you my other idea for when you have just a few straggler lunch boxes left over. Okay, here we go. Okay. All right, so that shifted a whole bunch more down by that warehouse door, so we should see another pile slide on through. There we go. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you the other thing you can do if they get stuck like that. If you have some sort of, you don't have to use an exploding weapon, but if you have an exploding weapon, like I have my exploding shotgun, then you can just move them down. Now this will cause some of the items to collapse through to the ground, but most of them will just get moved. Well, that opened a bunch of them up. I can definitely see a bunch of them opened up there. Okay, so maybe I was wrong. Maybe the pulse grenade isn't the best item to use. It worked really well in my test, but that was only with 150 of them, not with 450. So I'll go ahead and pick up all these pieces while we're waiting, but let's go ahead and open this up and see another avalanche of lunch. Oh, look at that. There, that did the trick. Awesome. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and cut ahead, and I'm going to let the sorter sort all the junk out and all the lunch boxes into this, and then we'll test out the re-looping technique, okay? So I'll be back in a second, and I'll pick all this stuff off the ground while I'm at it. Okay guys, I'm back, and I think it is finished with all the items getting sorted through here into here. I'm going to go ahead and close this, and as you can see, there's a bunch of straggling items in there that are kind of partially stuck to the glass. But we'll go ahead and run the lunch boxes back up again, and then maybe I'll use a nuka grenade this time, okay? So here's how this process works now. It is going to start pulling all the items out of the storage container through the hopper, and it's going to run across that upper conveyor. From the bottom, it looks like it's going the wrong direction, but that's because it's going the right direction on the top part. So in a moment, we will see the lunch boxes start dropping down. And then, of course, I'll cut ahead again until we have that full bottom part filled up again. There we go. Awesome. Now this process will be a little quicker, so I'll go ahead and cut ahead, and then we'll fire off a nuka grenade this time. Okay, so the last of the lunch boxes is cycled back through again, so let's go ahead and turn this off. And I'm going to fire off a clear weather shell. Okay. And then let's fire off our nuka grenade, all right? Now this is gonna make a big splash, but well, I just wanted to show you guys what that looks like. All right, now that does knock out a few items, and you can see we'll take a little bit of radiation as we walk through this area. And then let's go ahead and I'll clean this up while it's cycling through, but let's see what happens here. Awesome, look at that big pile fall in there. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and let those cycle through again. And you can essentially keep doing this over and over again as many times as you want, collecting the loot out of these lunch boxes. I mean, even the small stuff like the plastic can be used to make jet, you know? So it's definitely worth it. And then I'll show you another very valuable item near the end of the video that you can make with this process that I think makes this whole thing. Ooh, look at that. There we got a little model. Bunch Bunch of Nuka-Colas I see. Look at that. I did not plant that there. That must have gotten blasted out of that. Okay. Very cool. Okay, so we have a bunch of them that got stuck on the glass. I wish there was a better solution for that. That's the best I could do. But as you can see, a few of them get stuck actually inside, and those are causing some choke points for the rest of them to slide down. But yeah, glad I had that little red light to remind me to turn that off. And then I'm going to turn off this assembly here, and instead of shooting it with a explosive shotgun, I'm just going to use the regular. And as you can see, it kind of goes through the glass a little bit, you know, slides them down some. I wouldn't normally be using this valuable ammo, except for this demonstration. You guys can use pipe pistols or whatever. Another thing that's possible could be to create a little opening right there in the glass and then just toss some regular frag grenades in there. The reason I don't have multiple grenades loaded into the pitching machine is because the delayed off switch has a little bit of a bug in it where you can't program it to stay on for longer than just a half a second. I mean, I don't know. Let me know if you guys have run into that problem, because the pitching machine takes about 3 to 4 seconds or so to wind up to pitch the first grenade. And if you leave it on, it's gonna pitch all the grenades at once. So you need a way for it to just fire one and then turn off. And unfortunately, I keep running into that little bug with the delayed off switch. So the frag grenade idea might be another solution. Okay, so I'm going to continue letting these sort through, and then we'll take a look at our bounty in the conveyor storage box. All right. Okay guys, it has finished the production process here, and as you can see, there are going to be a few stragglers that get stuck in the glass. Now, if I wanted to, what I could do is go into workshop mode, select that glass roof, that bottom of the silo there, and then all the lunchboxes would fall to the ground, but I won't bother for that right now. And as you can see, they have been sorted and collected in this conveyor storage. Now from here, they've been repaired. So what I can do is I could take them all and go sell them at a vendor. You know, for something between, like, I don't know, 10 and 20 caps. So not only between that and all the loot we are going to see, we have more than made up for the amount of steel that we spent. So let's go see what our loot looks like. Okay, so we got 39 baseballs, 44 gum, 36 chalk, 47 Dandy Boy apples, dinner forks, gumdrops. Oh, we got an ice cold. Oh, cool. Ice cold Nuka-Cola, ice cold Nuka-Cola Quantum. And a Mr. Handy model. All right. Noodle cups, Nuka Cherry, bunch of Nuka-Colas. Now, these I might actually keep to drink because they're pretty good 8 items. These I might sell, or I could use them for Nuka-Cola recipes. You know, got a couple of Nuka-Cola Quantums too. Bunch of pens, bunch of pencils, plastic forks, plastic knives, which I mentioned can be used for making jet, which then can also be sold. Plastic spoons, a Protectron model, very nice, and a Sentry Bot model. Bunch of table knives, which are steel, so we got a bunch of steel back as well as from the spoons, and some Wonder Glue. Okay, so I'm going to take all, and then I wanted to go over here and show you something else you can do. Oh, and I gotta go get the lunch boxes. Should have done this first. Oh well. Okay, so here's another thing you can do with those lunchbox items, which can also be used to make up for the steel components that you use to make these vault-tec lunchboxes, or just to sell them, or even just use them yourself. And that is to craft some bottle cap mines. And you'll need 1 rank in Demolition Expert to do this, and it doesn't actually require caps. So if you really wanted to, you could just create them, explode them yourself, and then collect the caps. So one more reason why this is truly a loot box factory. Now, a lot of people have said that water farming is a better method for making caps. But here's the thing. It takes a really long time to do the water farming. Theoretically, it takes less time to make these vault-tec lunchboxes, you know, even though you have to stick around in the settlement for it to work. It's almost like 6.5 dozen the other, you know, but ultimately I do think this is actually a better cap maker and a better component maker, and you might even get some cool items. I was really hoping to get a fusion core in there just so I could prove to you guys that, you know, that you can get it, but it didn't show up. Now, the frequency of the items that I got from the loot bin may actually end up having to do with your luck. A lot of people asked about that and what comes out of those items, whether it is random or whether it is based on your luck. I can't confirm that it is luck, but a lot of people said they've tried this method and all they've gotten are chalk and some plastic spoons, where, as you can see, out of 450 lunchboxes, I managed to get 3 robot models. So the percentage of that, of getting those models, 3 out of 450, is somewhere around 1%. So obviously they're not going to show up very often. They're extremely rare items. Same with the ice colds. I only got 1 or 2 of those out of 450 boxes. That kind of explains why some of the extremely rare items may only show up once in a while. But, you know, I don't want to encourage any gamblers out there, but it's a lot like those scratch cards, you know. 99% of them you're going to waste your money on, and then there's that one that ends up being extremely valuable. So, you know how it goes. At least with this method, it's free, and, you know, you're having a little bit of fun in the process. So, but the reason I do like this method actually is because even if you get a whole bunch of junk items, chalk and plastic, and then you have all those vault-tec lunchboxes that are repaired, you've more than made up for the amount that you've spent on the components to make them. And I got XP for building this little factory, and it was kind of fun. So it's really not a waste. It's actually a very practical way to do it, despite some of the comments saying that it wasn't a very efficient method. But anyway, I wanted to kind of redeem the naysayers with this little mechanism here, and I think that was a pretty fun experiment. I'm going to go sell all this junk off for caps, or at least store it to build new settlement items. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Now, the construction of this build was pretty easy if you've seen my deep dive videos, such as the pillar glitch and the rug glitch and my intro to manufacturing video. So check those out and just use the principles in those videos if you watch them to recreate this. I have to say, my list of settlement video ideas keeps expanding because of all of your amazing suggestions in the comments, which is not a bad problem to have. I'm probably going to be playing Fallout 76 in the fall, but something tells me there's still going to be a lot of love left for Fallout 4 building. So I'm glad I have such an amazing community supporting the channel. Oh, and there's still time to get in your 100K celebration videos. Several of them have already rolled in, so if you want to get immortalized on YouTube, then check out that rules video, link in the description, the iCard above. In the meantime, hammer that like button and share this video around, and I'll see you next time. Happy building, and class dismissed.